All right, it's our final segment this morning with Lynn Heady. She's with us with Better Angels. The number is 737-7587. Not getting as many calls because I imagine a lot of people maybe have already made up their mind one way or the other, whether they would participate in a group like this or we're covering most of the questions. But I'm just wondering if they think it's a good idea. I don't know how anyone can hear this and not think it's at least a good idea, considering that it's nonpartisan and that it may just help us all be more civil to each other. And it all comes down to understanding.
Yeah.
Man, it's funny when you get in the same room with some of these people that you think you have so much different with. Even, I've come to know a lot of these radio talk show hosts that both conservative and liberal that are on the shows. And on the radio, they are bombastic and they're very controversial and they'll say things and they'll seem unreasonable. And then you get them one-on-one in person somewhere where you run into them and it's much more calm and easygoing, and the reason for that is truly because when you're on the radio, you got to put on the show, and you want to spin stuff and get people fired up more. Whereas one-on-one, sometimes I wonder when I talk to them if they really even believe everything they just said on the radio.
Yeah.
And in general, they do, but they say it much differently when you're with them. It's much more civil one-on-one when you're sitting with them at lunch than when you hear them on the radio and you're like, what did they just say? That's absurd.
Yeah.
And then they're reasonable.
And people are listening.
Yeah, face to face.
And they're modeling something that people are picking up on and doing the same thing. That's really dangerous.
Yeah.
So I commend you that you do the both sides.
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen.
No. Well, and I was going to say, I could be part of this group because it's nonpartisan, and you basically are doing what we do as journalists, which, if I'm doing a story and it's political, I'm going to make sure, if I have the Republican side, I'm going to have the Democrat side. And I'm going to make sure that Republican soundbite's just as close as it can be to the same, to be as fair as possible. I'm going to get them both, so people can listen, and that's the fair way to do things.
At our convention, we had there was a program one evening with the president of the Tea Party and the president of Black Lives Matter, and they had a one-on-one discussion with the moderator in front of this audience of over 300 people. It was civil, it was informative. I learned so much, and then everybody walked away from there saying, they said the same thing. That core value, that basic value in both organizations shone through. It truly did. And yet, you have all this noise going around where these two gentlemen at the end said, well, we do agree on that. That's great. That's the kind of thing that needs to be happening in our society again today.
To dispel, like you said earlier, I love the fact that one of the workshops looks at stereotypes, because that's so much. You're going to have instantly a stereotype on either one of those, the Tea Party or the other group. You're going to have a stereotype, and stereotypes come about, they're loosely based in reality, sure. They come about for a purpose, but they're not usually all that accurate when it really comes right down to it. But everyone has these ideas about stereotypes. You see someone with a Make America Great hat on, whatever side you may be on, you're going to instantly make an assumption about that individual. And just based on a hat. And that's not really fair.
Yeah.
You got to sit down and talk to them. Or, and that just doesn't happen anymore.
Let me tell you, we've had groups, we do a lot of workshops. Nationally, we do an awful lot of workshops, but just to give you a smattering of the groups that have called us here to do workshops, we're going to do one coming up in November with the Heritage Foundation Centennials.
Conservative group.
We've done it with Move On Tennessee, with another group called Common Ground Nashville, which is a discussion group that meets monthly to bring reds and blues together around issues, topics. We've been called to many Methodist churches who were struggling with some issues that they've been dealing with on the meta level. Synagogues have called us. We've been to Rotary meetings. All of these groups are looking for the same thing, and yet they don't represent the same point of view. Some are very conservative, some are middle of the road.
But these are all people then that are calling you, not thinking, well, we need to get them out so we can get the agenda, have these meetings, and convince someone. They're like, just instead of being a party, they're Americans who see what's happening, and they're concerned, recognizing that, look, we've got to find a way to get some civility so we can get some compromise to get anything done, or it's just going to be gridlock, and we're going to just keep spinning in a circle. That's kind of my take on it. That's the way I look at it. I know I'm not going to get everything I want. I'm willing to give a little if it helps us progress further along.
And we have to start looking at each other, as you just said with the hat example.
But on single issues like abortion,
yeah,
for a lot of people, there is no giving one way or the other. So there are some issues where you can make the argument there is just no giving. Now, I believe in the issue of guns and gun violence, there can be room for giving on both sides, in my opinion. But on abortion, for a lot of people, it's either you're for it or you're against it. There's no wiggle room there. Now, some may say, well, what about in cases of rape or incest, or you have exceptions?
Right.
I mean, there's little bits like that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, for most people, regardless of where they stand, it's either it's pro-choice in the woman's body, or no, that's a defenseless child that needs to be protected. That's the two views, and there's no wiggle room.
But that wiggle room, as little as it may be, is a victory. That wiggle room where we can say, what about in the case of rape or in the case of incest? Is there somewhere? Always looking for one little kernel for compromise. So on that issue, it may just be a tiny little kernel. On other issues, it may be more significant. Again, it depends, you're right, it depends on the issue. But talking about it, I mean, I have some very strong views about abortion, as I'm sure you do, and everybody listening probably does. And yet, I had a one-on-one conversation with someone who believes the opposite of me. We walked away from that, and I thought to myself, well, I get why she feels this way. And she's consistent in how she feels. Her life shows me she does things that are true to the way she believes. Did I change my mind or agree with her? No. Did I respect her and understand her and have a little more information for me to move forward? Absolutely. And that's the key. We're not going to change everybody's mind. That doesn't make sense.
Right. No, that's true. But the understanding is the whole key, so that at least you talk. And then maybe on all these other issues too. And those are just, there's the few, you know, benchmark ones like that, where it's just, there's just not much wiggle room. But if you can get past some of those, I mean, there's so much more. I mean, there's the point, you know, like you said, it's interesting what you said about your family at holidays and stuff, where it started getting in the way. I mean, there are friendships that have fallen apart over, you know, the support of one candidate or the other. That they're just so upset with what they see happening that they believe this person that was their friend in the past, you just can't come to terms with the fact that they would support this candidate or that candidate. And that friendship falls apart.
And you know,
you were friends at one point.
That's right. And our newest workshop, which Bill Doherty, who is the family therapist, brought to us, is about talking to family about politics. It is so pervasive that a separate workshop on just how to talk to family, how to compromise, how to understand each other, how to learn to talk to each other, is now on our menu of
You would
events.
think of anyone you could do that with, it would be family members that you love, but I mean, isn't it still the rule of thumb? They're probably the hardest too. And it's most personal and emotional, and they're most likely to be open with you about getting angry, but I mean, the rule of thumb still for me is, and any kind of function, socially or whatever, I'm just not going to bring up politics. I'm just not going to. You know, if someone else does, you know, I'll listen in. I'm not going to weigh in with my personal thoughts on it, unless I happen to be around a bunch of folks that are like-minded than me, that I know that, and then maybe I'll weigh in, but I'll also make sure there isn't someone who isn't, because I don't want to leave them out.
And what we hope you'll learn from Better Angels are ways that you can say what you believe that are not going to offend anybody, but are going to cause some clarification. That is the trick.
I think that's great. All right, so if someone wants to join Better Angels, how do they go about doing it?
Okay, two ways. The first way, the easiest way, and given your comments about being on the phones all the time, they can send a text message. And in the to line, it's 66866. In the message line, just capital B, capital A. They'll get back an email with a link, and they go and join. That'll take them to the website, to a form. They put in name, address, phone number, most importantly zip code, so that I get them on my database for Tennessee. They can either commit and say I'm a red, I'm a blue, or I'm in the middle. It's up to them. That immediately, then it asks, do you want to pay just the fee, which is $12
a year, and you get a newsletter and all that. By the way, real quick, when you said if you don't commit, and I can understand some of that, like for instance, if I did it, I wouldn't necessarily want to commit, but I mean, you said it's very important that you have an equal number of blue and red, so if I don't commit, I wouldn't really be able to be part of one of those groups, would I?
Oh yeah, only one asks you to say I am red or blue, and that's the red blue workshop. All the other ones we have a mixture of people.
Okay.
So
Because
of
I was going to
7,
say,
it's just the one.
Or if I'm truly independent on certain things and go both ways, I don't really belong in either group. And I want to participate. You could still do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, we. If you do go and you join and you can do more than $12, we are a member-funded organization. If you can't have the time to help us, then use your pocketbook. Give us a little bit more than that 12, or give a monthly. You have the option of giving $10 a month.
It's a nonprofit, tax exempt, and again, it's nonpartisan.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you go on there, and then you can make that thing, and then at some point, will you be contacted? That doesn't necessarily rope you in immediately to having to go to workshops, but
Absolutely not.
You'll be told when some are up, and you can decide if and when. And if you want to do more and get training to be one of the leaders, that as well can come into play, right?
Absolutely. Once you join, I get monthly updates of new members. I send a welcome email, and I outline things that are coming up, and I try to talk to everybody personally. I ask them for a phone number and say, let's chat.
Are you guys in all 50 states?
All 50 states.
And it's
we
growing.
Have,
it's growing. It's been around for 3 years.
It's growing quite nicely.
It is big.
It truly is. You know, other organizations may grow faster because they don't adhere to that rule of balance like we do.
Yeah.
We try not to let it get out of hand.
You have to. That's at the heart of it. Because if you don't, and someone starts suspecting it's partisan and there's an angle on this, you're only going to get one side, and it's just going to break down the whole mission.
The other way people can join, if you're not phone savvy, is to go on the internet.
Yeah, and we'll
better-angels.org.
Okay.
And there's a big button that says join us, and then it gives you options when you click it of how you would like to join.
There it is. We'll put it on again at the end of the show, which wraps up in a moment here. But Lynn, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Interesting conversation. Now I know Better Angels exists, and I think we're better for it. So.
And now we're going to go after you as one of us. There
Thanks
you go.
again.
Thank
I'll
you.
be back with a programming note about tomorrow, as well as that address for their website. We'll be back after this. Great. And